What up, YouTube? Unfortunately, this is my 97 Toyota Tacoma, and recently it started overheating a little bit. So just trying to figure out the source of that overheating, and I looked at this coolant reservoir, and unfortunately the see that, nice and gummy, no bueno. Looked inside under the cap, no bueno either. So we're gonna put a coolant cleaner in here, solvent, and then run it through the system. I don't know if the thermostat went out and then the coolant went bad, or the coolant went bad and then the thermostat went out. Either or, we're gonna change the thermostat. Thermostat is located right here in these Tacomas. If you're looking at the engine, it's to the right of the engine and straight down. We're gonna change the thermostat out. We're gonna flush the coolant, and then from there, we're gonna refill it, and hopefully this thing will be running cool again. So let's get going. So first, you want to disconnect your battery. I'm using the battery in this truck for something else right now, but disconnect the battery cables. You don't want that fan to be kicking on and take off one of your fingers. So after you're done with that, you're gonna head to the bottom, and we're gonna remove the fluid out of the radiator. All right, so we're at the bottom of the truck right now. I took off the skid plate. Down at the bottom of the radiator, we're looking for a drain plug, and so back here on my side is on the passenger side, there's a little spigot. So I'm just gonna turn this guy and let it loose, and hopefully this drains out properly, because as you saw, it was pretty gummy. So we're gonna do that, drain it as much as possible, and then we're gonna fill it up with some solvent and distilled water, and run it through the engine and drain it again. So I got a little impatient and pulled out the whole plug here. See if it'll focus. It's threaded, so be patient with it. If you see the grooves, that's right there, and lets the fluid escape as you're unscrewing it. Just let it screw and just be patient, let it drain out. If not, you're gonna make a big mess like I did right now. Pulling it out, it just kind of shoots out. So just let it do its thing, and then check back on it maybe like 20 minutes later. Here's the coolant drained out. It's definitely not the Toyota red that you'd expect, but it's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I'm not even sure if this is the orange. It looks more like it was the green. But anyway, now that that's drained out, we're also going to be looking inside of the engine block on the passenger side, because we're looking for the engine coolant drain plug, because we need to drain the fluid out of there as well. Okay, the only reason I'm a little skeptical about this is because this is my first time doing it on this truck. However, I think I found it. So let's see how good this camera can focus. Right there is the bolt, and right underneath it, I don't know if you can see, there's a little opening. That's a 14mm bolt, and we're gonna crack that open, and hopefully the fluid will drain out of there. I'm gonna put the pan right underneath it, and I'll be back with you in 1 second. All right, so it looks like we were spot on about that. Got the fluid coming out of that little opening. It's going down to the coolant right here. And if you're looking at the truck, this is obviously the front of the truck. This is on the passenger side, and it's just slightly in front of the coil bucket. So now with the fluid drained out, we're gonna move on to the thermostat. So here's the radiator, here's the front of the engine. We're looking for this pipe right here, and it goes right between the belts, between the fan belt and the alternator. Right in the middle there is the opening to the thermostat. There's two bolts. It's one right here, it'll focus, and there's one behind it on the other side. But before we get to that, I wanted to make a note. So what you should take note is, obviously, if your engine coolant is low, it's going to cause an overheating issue. So make sure it's topped off. But if you're checking your thermostat, one thing you could do is, if your engine's taking a long time to heat up, it could be that your thermostat is stuck open. If your engine is running, it says it's running hot because of your temperature gauge, what you could do is you can go underneath the radiator and touch the lower radiator hose. If it's not hot, then it could be that your thermostat is stuck closed. Now, if it's hot and it's running through the system, you might have to check your temperature gauge, because that could be also faulty and giving you a false reading. But in our case, the engine was running hot, we had coolant in there, so I'm thinking that the thermostat is faulty, so we're going to replace it with this new thermostat. These ones don't come with a gasket, so you have to buy the gasket separately. That's what I did. And these also come with a jiggle valve, which I believe is that thing right there, that little thing that's shaking. So this guy right here has to be, it says here, 15 degrees within the 12 o'clock position. So when it goes into the truck, it needs to be basically pointing upward like this. But we're gonna note the position of the thermostat that's coming out of the truck anyway. All right, again, we're trying to get to this pipe right here. As far as I can tell, there's one nut here. There's another nut on this side, and the one you can't see is underneath here, directly across from this one. So there's our 12 millimeter nuts, and they're not on there that tight, so don't get crazy with it. So we're just gonna pull this off and then see what the thermostat looks like. All right, so there's a little bracket that goes to the wire loom there, but you can pull this pipe back, and I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if we can zoom in here. That is our thermostat. So that looks like it's not in pretty good shape. So we're just gonna pull that off here by hand, and hopefully the gasket comes out whole. If not, we're gonna have to clean it up here before we put the new one in. So yeah, it looks like our thermostat came out nice and clean. At least we won't have that much trouble cleaning that area up. Gasket came out whole, but as you can see, this thing is pretty corroded and messed up. Probably what was causing us to have an issue being stuck closed. But we're gonna replace this guy, clean that area up, and once we're done with that, we're gonna fill the system with a cleaner, and I'll show you that here in a second. And the cleaner that we're going to be using is this Blue Devil radiator flush and oil degreaser. It says here that you can put this whole thing in, top it off with distilled water. We got distilled water over there ready to go. You could run this for 20 minutes in your car. For deeper clean, it says there to drive it for 1 to 2 hours. Product can remain in the system for up to 4 hours. So we're just going to do a flush with this in and go from there. So let's move on to putting the thermostat back in. All right, so we got our gasket on our thermostat, and like I said earlier, we're going to put this in the 12 o'clock position. I'm going to have to use both hands to get down there, but yeah, I'm going to put it in just like this, and then put the pipe on with the 3 nuts that go on the pipe. Yeah, so I just made sure it was just sitting in there flush. The thermostat will actually just sit in there, and then make sure that this is butted up against there so the seam closes up. I didn't see any torque specs for these nuts, but they weren't on there very tight, so I'm just going to make them a little tighter than hand tight. The seal is supposed to be what's stopping the coolant from coming out there anyways. This last one that's on this side, it's kind of a pain in the ass, but I just ended up just putting the nut on the actual socket there and then threading it. The other ones went on pretty easy. Now if you want to secure it, what you could do is you could put a little piece of paper towel here just to hold the nut in place so it doesn't drop on you. That's one trick for that, but yeah, snug them up, and we'll go on to filling the radiator. So we got the Blue Devil and the distilled water topped off. I want to get this reservoir cleaned out too. These reservoir tanks actually pull up. There's just a clip there that's holding it in. There it goes. So I'm gonna clean this out too, get this topped off, and then run the truck for about 30 minutes with the high heat. All right, so we got the truck running. Still pretty cold. Just watching the temp. Gonna let it run for about 20-30 minutes. So far it looks like a lot of the bubbles have already come out of the system. Oh, maybe not. There's still some coming out. But make sure those bubbles are out, because if not, that could cause a false overheating reading. We shouldn't have an issue, but we're gonna let it run and flush it out, and we're gonna do another flush. I'm gonna do a total of 2 flushes and then fill it with antifreeze. All right, excellent. We've been running the truck for about 30 minutes. Everything's nice and hot. I didn't see any leaks. Temperature gauge shows that it's right in the middle still, so looking good. Seems like the thermostat was our issue, so I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to just flush it out once more, and then fill it up with the Toyota red coolant, and we should be done with this job. All right, so now we just finished up the second round of the distilled water in the Blue Devil. This is what we started out with. The Blue Devil stuff really loosened up some grime and debris, whatever was in the radiator. We ended up with this, but this is still some of the old fluid mixed in with the Blue Devil stuff, because I was still sitting in the pan when I was draining it out. But it came out pretty clear from the radiator, even though I'd only done it once. So I'm assuming the second round that's going to come out right now is going to be pretty clear. But I'm going to clean up this pan so that we can kind of get a good visual of what's coming out. If it looks pretty good to me, then I'm just going to call it good, and then put in the antifreeze, and we should be good to go from there. All right, so we got our pan all cleaned up, and we're going to open up the drain plug here, see if the fluid comes out clear. Well, not as clear as I wanted it to be, but a little murky still. Probably would take another 2-3 flushes to get it fully clear. I've already done 3 flushes. So engine was running in the middle temp, running pretty good. So I'm not gonna be too worried about it. I'm gonna throw some of that Toyota coolant in there, and then if I have another issue, then I'll crack it open again. But I think since it's running fine, I'm gonna leave it as is, and even later down the road I might just replace the radiator so I don't have to do this whole flush situation. So all right, and the coolant that I'm using is this 50/50 Toyota pre-diluted, ready to add. Looks like that, really bright pink color. Gonna fill this guy up and call it good. Don't forget to check out the Instagram page for the Dirtbag Garage, and my own personal page, Dr_Omiz. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. If you want to see other maintenance videos for 97 Tacoma, keep watching the channel, and more videos on the 2000 Toyota Tundra coming up as well.